Hello, my name is AJ Goldsby. I'm a life master from Pensacola, Florida, and I'm coming today to bring you a video on a game that I recently completed and made a web page for. It's a very famous game. It wasn't played, recently. It was played, in fact, in 1995, but it's an extremely brilliant win, a very short game. It belongs to my collection of miniatures. It also is, just an extremely brilliant game and just a fantastically complicated game. Features many sacrifices and many surprise moves too, for that matter. But anyway, the game is between Vladimir Kramnik and Alexander Beliavsky, and it's from the Belgrade Investbank tournament in 1995. Kramnik was white and Beliavsky was black. Let's go ahead and look at the game, shall we? The first move is knight f3 d5. That's basically, we possibly could be heading for a ready type of opening. But of course, knight f3 is very transpositional. We can transpose into just about any possible opening, except for maybe, a king's gambit or something of that nature, because white's f pawn's already blocked. But anyway, knight f3 is another reason a lot of grandmasters choose that move, is because it helps them to master intentions. They can play virtually any opening. They can transpose into a queen pawn, into an English. I mean, they can transpose in a lot of different openings. So basically, white, tries to. It's sort of like chess undercover or camouflage chess. White tries to develop without giving away any of his intentions, which is really the heart of the school of the hypermodern chess, which Rady said, you shouldn't control the center with pawns. You should control the center with your pieces. White continues G3. Of course, this is a very hyper-modern system. This is the Fianchetto. MCO calls this the King's Indian attack, or maybe the Barca system. Some people call it the King's Indian reversed. Any one of those names would probably be correct here. And, we're just continue on the opening. Black plays 2c6. That's just reinforcing d5. It's a good move. White plays bishop g2. Now, here, if I were black, I would probably just play developing moves like maybe bishop f5 or even h6 there, and then bishop f5 and try to go to a Rady system. Also, black could simply play knight d7 and maybe go for an early e5 if white allows that. Or black could simply, castle, get ready to castle. In other words, play e6, knight f6, bishop to e7, or even bishop to d6 and go ahead and castle here. So there's a lot of different plans here for black. I'm not sure that black's next move is 100% correct. If a amateur had done this, I would have probably instructed him and told him that the move was incorrect. Obviously, when a player that's rated as high as Beliavsky was here, he was rated 2650, and that was 10 years ago. There's been a substantial amount of rating inflation since then. Today, the same rating would probably be equate to about nearly a 2700 rating. But anyway, Beliavsky, he should know what he's doing. He plays bishop g4. And in some ways, that's not a bad idea. In other words, black can now play ideas like knight d7 and not worry about an e6 and not worry about having closed in his light squared bishop is now activated. Of course, the bishop on g4 can often be a target, and that's actually what happens in this game. So that's one of the drawbacks of placing the bishop on the square. White goes ahead and castles knight d7. White plays d4. Okay, that's a very committal move, but that's a good move because, see, after knight d7, let's just back up a second. After knight d7, black is threatening. If white plays some simple move like b3 or even d3, then black could play e5 and grab the whole center. So what basically, the opening is about controlling the center. So d4 is a very good move there. And now we have white basically is playing a Catalan type setup. With the pawn on d4, it's no longer really truly a King's Indian attack or a Barca system. It's more like a Catalan. However, black has got this bishop out on g4, so it's a little bit of an unusual system there. Continuing on, black plays 5e6 there. That's black's move. White plays knight bd2, and now black plays a very unusual move. He plays 6 dot 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 f5, f7, f5 here. That's, to me, that's might be a doubtful concept. There's no doubt that it weakens too many squares. And like I said, if one of my students had done this, then I would have questioned. I would have said it was dubious or even a question mark. However, this is not an inexperienced player playing black. This is an accomplished grandmaster, someone who won the Soviet championship. So, I mean, Beliavsky is a very good player. So he's won many tournaments, and he's also written a number of books. And at one time, he was, I think, easily in the top 25 of the world's grandmasters. He may have even been in the top 10 at one time, although I'm not 100% sure of that. But anyway, black plays f5 here, and as you can see at the chessboard, the e5 square has been weakened, and also black's pawn structure makes a rather strange appearance. And you have to ask yourself, why did black play f5? Well, white's, given white enough time to prepare, he can play simple moves like c3, queen c2, and then e4, or even rook e1 and e4. So basically, the idea of f5 is he's trying to clamp down on white's e4 square, and also that gives black a real strong outpost. He can play moves like knight gf6, followed by knight e4, outposting his knight very strongly. And black, after knight gf6, black can also complete his development moves like bishop to d6 and castle without worry about white playing e4 here. So that would be the black's idea, is basically trying to grab the center and permanently hold it. Um, it's kind of funny because black's playing like a Dutch type of setup, sort of a stonewall pawn formation. And Beliavsky's had a fair amount of successes with the Dutch. The Dutch is really, the stonewall is really an unusual opening. There's a little bit of history there. At one time, the stonewall was considered completely dead at the grandmaster level. That was probably back in the late 70s, early 80s. No GMs that I know of at that time, say circa 1975 or early 1980s, was playing the Stonewall system. Then some younger players came to the fore, young Turks of that generation, and they began playing the Stonewall at the highest levels and winning with it, and totally caused opening theory to reevaluate their outlook on opening theory, and also on the Stonewall in particular. And of course, what grandmasters do very oftentimes, amateur players love to imitate. So anyway, black's playing like a Stonewall system, and basically, though, he is behind in development. Black only has two pieces developed, or I count white's development as his king already having castled, the rook being developed, the bishop here is developed on g2, this knight is developed, this knight here is developed, and in a way, white's queen is developed because it's very ready to come into action very quickly, and that's actually what happens in the way. So black has to be very careful because he really only has two pieces developed here, and he has to be careful about making a move like f5 while his king remains in the center. In other words, white should play to open the game, which is basically the Morphy principle. In other words, if you've already castled and your opponent's king is still in the center, then the player who's ahead in development should open the position as quickly as possible. Basically, we know that to be true for Paul Morphy's games. But anyway, here white plays c4. That was obvious, a very obvious move, a very a good move. Black has at least temporarily prevented white from playing e4, so white plays c4 and begins to pound away on the pawn chain. I mean, that's what he's got to do. Black plays bishop d6, continuing his development. Now white plays queen b3. Of course, you can see this hits the b7 square, and it also hits d5. So black's got to stop and do something about his development here. Black plays rook b8. I would have thought that maybe a move like queen b6 would be a good move for black. And it's not a fork. It looks like it falls because, if white plays c5, he just plays queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, and then moves his bishop. So the fork is really just, a mirage. I mean, there black can get out of the fork pretty easily. So I thought rook b8 might have been a slightly inferior move. Didn't really talk about that much on the webpage, but, black obviously had many options. b6 is a little dangerous because it weakens all these squares. It weakens c6. White might play queen e4 or even exchange and play queen a4, and the all these light squares have been significantly weakened, and basically my rule of thumb is that when you're playing a really good player, you weaken enough squares, you can just simply count on him eventually exploiting those weakened squares. So anyway, here black plays rook b8 and white plays rook e1. That rook is pointed directly at the king. Now I would have thought that the correct move here for white would simply play the correct move for black would simply be to play knight gf6. That looks like the indicated move there. And if that had been played in the game, black would have been all right, I think. I don't think the game would have turned out the way it did. For whatever reason, black did not play that move. That was not the move that black played. For some reason, black played knight h6. And you've heard it said over and over again that, hey, a knight on the rim is grim. Don't put a knight on the edge of the board, that kind of stuff. That's true for the average player, or for a low-rated or totally inexperienced player, a beginner perhaps. But that's not true of a grandmaster. When a grandmaster puts a knight on the board, you got to say he's got an idea here. So I'm thinking probably one of the ideas here is that, black can play moves like g5 and maybe get an attack going. This knight can also come back to f7 and help control the critical e5 square. So I'm thinking that's the reasons that, Beliavsky did that. But now he's made enough bad moves to where, just enough to where white can try to begin exploiting the advantage, his advantage. And again, black played 9 dot dot dot. Black played 9 dot 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 knight h6 here. And now white basically can begin to try to rip open the game in open lines, which is what he should do. He plays c takes d5, and now black plays um, c takes d5. I would have thought that maybe e takes d5 was a possibility there. Let's just fire up Fritz real quick. Let's just quickly explore that, because I didn't really talk about that on the web page. And I do have a web page on this game. It is already posted. And after I post the video, I will post a link to my web page. Let's say if white had played, say, e takes d5 here. Well, I guess white goes ahead and does the very same thing. He goes e4, and if black plays f takes e4, knight takes to e4, d takes e4, rook e4 check. Oh, king f8, and here we see bishop takes at h6, knight f6. These are all Fritz moves. And now knight g5. And according to now, oh yes, I see this, and now you're threatening rook takes bishop and knight e6. They're winning, and Fritz gives white shows that white is winning by almost 4 full points. So that's just Fritz 12 analysis there. But anyway, I didn't really explore that on the webpage too much. But after c takes d5, I would have taken with the e pawn, but black took with the c pawn. I'm not really sure why he did that. This was a prepared line. Also, too, I should back up here. This line with knight h6, this has already been played several times before. In fact, Kramnik makes the comment about this game that this line was sort of coming in fashion at the time. So, this was, and it had been played before, believe it or not. I know it sounds almost, unbelievable, but if you know opening theory and have bought the Informant series of books, you'll see what I'm talking about. And these games can be found in a lot of the online databases today, of course. But anyway, white plays c takes d5. Black recaptures with the e pawn. I mean, with the c pawn, rather. I would have thought that recapturing with the e pawn would have been a little bit better. And now white plays h3. This is a very good move. It's sort of like a preparatory move. He's getting ready to knock that bishop off the g4 square. And basically, black should probably go ahead and exchange. And that in itself will give white a pretty big edge there. I think bishop takes f3 is nearly forced because of the things that arise afterwards. Black doesn't do that. He plays bishop h5, and that has to be dubious. And now Fritz, I've got Fritz running in the background, and suddenly its evaluation changed. The little light winks on, and black's hanging on to his light squared bishop, and maybe he doesn't see the danger, or he just didn't think white would play e4 here. And, that's sort of giving it away. And if you want to, I'm going to stop talking for just a second. And if you want to, just pause the video here and study this position for a few minutes and see what move you would play here as white. Okay, hopefully you did what I asked. You went ahead and paused the video and studied this position for several minutes. But all of a sudden now white's next move, he plays this really amazing move, e4. That might be a triple exclam. That is just an amazing move. And this is not opening preparation as far as I know. Now, it could be, that it was prepared and Kramnik didn't tell us about that. But Kramnik did write about this in his book, My Life in Games, the book which he has on his career, which he published jointly with Damsky. It's called My Life in Games by Vladimir Kramnik and Damsky. I have that book. Anyway, white played e4 there, just a tremendous shot. And I see I'm running a little bit long here, so what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and cut this off and continue my analysis of this game and the video of this game in part 2. Thank you for watching part 1, and please be sure to watch part 2 of the video. Have a great day, and thanks. Bye.